Hi, Steve Ladd here again with my ninth installment on reconfiguring, rebuilding this proa sailboat. Now it's wintertime here in Bremerton, Washington, and I can't do a lot of boat work in that I can't do any epoxy and I don't have a heated shop. But there have been a few things that I've been able to do since the last installation was in August. So I'm going to tell you about those things. And the first one has to do with the mast steps. Okay, I showed you the mast steps before, so I won't re-explain that, but the new part is the bearings whereby this is the stub mast. The masts themselves, made out of carbon fiber, fit inside there. This is the stub mast that goes inside the mast step. This is the mast step. The mast step has two parts, a sleeve here at deck level and a cup down below. This rubber thing between is just a sleeve to keep out water. The stub mast goes in, and these vertical welds of aluminum that are then sanded down to the right diameter are simply the bearings between the aluminum of the stub mast and the stainless steel of the mast step. Two parts, a sleeve and a cup at the bottom. And this is a rotating assembly. It's meant to be able to rotate, and the bearings, just the interface between the aluminum and the stainless steel. If one of them wears, eventually the aluminum will wear, and it's repairable. I'm not quite sure if it's really going to be quite as slippery as I want, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Okay, now a couple things I want to point out that I've done on the aft end of the boat. This is the stern. One is a set of handles here. I like to have handles even on this somewhat larger boat. It's still pretty light, able to, like if we're out in the water and waiting while moving it around, or you have a number of people, you're able to drag it up on the beach, you need handles. So there's a pair of handles on the stern here. And now I want to explain the boomkin. A boomkin is a spar projecting aft from the stern when your rig requires that you sheet the mizzen from some place that is aft of the stern. In other words, your mizzen boom extends beyond the stern. You can't sheet unless you put a boomkin in place. So this is the boomkin I've made, and this will be bolted onto this surface here. This will be welded onto a fitting that's going to be basically the upper gudgeon for the rudder. And this will slide between the two. It'll be removable. So that is the boomkin, but I need to explain why there might or might not be a boomkin. And that's that the rig that I have acquired is a two-masted rig, and I don't know yet whether the larger sail will be in the front, in which case this will be a ketch, or whether the larger sail will be in the back, in which case this rig will be a schooner. That'll be a matter of balance that I really don't need to figure out until it's in the water, and I'll determine that. So I'm going to show you now in the house what I mean by those two things. That is, I have drawings of it as a ketch rig and drawings of it as a schooner rig. So let's go in the house now. Okay, here's the explanation of the possible boomkin. This is a profile view of my boat, and these are rather small sails. They're just what I have. I don't know if these are what I'll end up with, but it's a rig that I've acquired for free, and that's the configuration with the smaller sail in front and the bigger sail in back. In which case, you see how the boom overhangs the stern. So that's why there's a boomkin here, for there to be a sheet going up between those two. If it's a schooner, if it's a ketch, it looks like that. That's the ketch. That's the schooner. Neither of those is necessarily the optimum sail plan, but I might at least keep one of those sails, and I'll probably use both of those masts. Okay, that's that. Okay, the last thing I want to point out to you for this installment is the Aka mounts. Now, this is an Aka. It's a cross beam that's going to be connecting the main hull to the outrigger. I don't have the outrigger in front of us here, but this is one of the ACAs, and the other will be over there. So there are 4 ACA mounts: the forward port and the forward starboard, the aft port and the aft starboard. Now, the original construction, these mounts were made of plywood on a plywood boat, so that was fairly straightforward. But how do you mount something like this onto a foam core fiberglass construction when you've got the leverage arm of this big ACA sticking out, and you're connecting it to fairly weak, flimsy material that involves foam? Well, I have concluded that there's 3 things to keep in mind when you do this. First, wherever the mountings occur, and I'll explain those in a minute, they have to go into something that's more solid than the foam. And so that's that material right there. Jenny, will you show them that stuff that's like a panel there? It's gray in color. It's called COOSA, CUSA board. CUSA board is sort of a plywood substitute that I can take pieces of and put in place of the foam core deck, or I can make just like discs, or I call them hockey pucks, that are just where the bolts will be passing through. So that's one, is a more solid material. Another is the amount of area that the mounts bleed off into, so as to distribute the loads over a bigger area. And fortunately for each of the ACAs, they are located where 3 major boat components coincide: deck, top sides, and a bulkhead. So each of these mounts will consist of interconnected plates on those 3 surfaces. And the final point to make is that each of these interconnected plates are in itself a pair of plates, because you can't just bond onto one side of a foam core fiberglass construction. You have to grab onto that section of material with plates on opposing sides that are bolted together. So there will be a sandwiching of the material here, a sandwiching of the material here, and a sandwiching of the material here. And all that's tied together. It's kind of a complicated little structure. So with that, I will show you some drawings in the house. And so let's go to the house now. Okay, so these are the drawings I've created for the ACA mounts. I have here 4 drawings that make up the design of the aft port fittings. And both of the port fittings consist of what I call bookends. This is in cross section the ACA, and these are the bookends. It fits between them, and there's a spacer here. And there's a lashing that goes over the ACA and down around what I call a spool, back up. Several lashings, then tie it off. That's in profile view, so you're looking at the top sides of the boat, and this is the spool. Now we look at it in plan view, and these are the bookends, and this is the spool. And now we look at it in section view. And here's the bookends, and here's the spool. So, and then this is the case on the aft side, on the port sides. On the starboard sides, they're both going to go into sockets. And that does it for now. That's my update as of February 2025.